you have a French door in your house or multiple sets of French doors like I do, they're a pain in the butt. And these are the doors with the ball clasp on top. That's what I'm talking about. If you got a different type of French door, it's probably amazing. But the ball clasp French door is probably the most common in more modern houses. And when you have your French doors, I mean, they're supposed to close easily. But if you got a ball clasp, over time, they get harder and harder to close. Your hinges start to loosen up, and it'd be frustrating, especially if you're trying to be quiet. You have to force them shut, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. Having a sticky ball clasp on top of your door, it's a little bit of a nuisance. I mean, it's not a huge problem unless you're in my house. And let's say I stay up late at night reading and studying and doing things for humanity. And then I decide to come to bed. My wife goes to bed early. And the moment I step in the room, like the moment my foot touches the carpet in the house, she shoots out of bed. She says, "Why are you making so much noise?"
Who disturbs my slumber?
So I've mastered levitating and floating across the floor when I come to bed at night. I'm like a ninja so that I don't awaken her. But if I gotta go pee-pee and I gotta put the light on in the toilet, I gotta fight with this door to get it to close. And oh my God, it makes a lot of noise. The other issue is if maybe I just use a flashlight on my cell phone. You know, I'll go into the bathroom and I'm sneaking around trying to go pee-pee and holding my light, but then it's like I'll drop my phone in the toilet, or I'll wake up my wife. She's like, "What are you doing in there?" So having a sticky door is a nuisance, but it's also a pain to open and close, and the kids have a hard time opening them. So I'll show you why it's happening, and then I'll show you how to make an adjustment to that. So that's your ball clasp right there. It's a ball, and it goes down. Now over time, as you open and close the door, there's a little cylinder in here that the ball lives in. And that cylinder starts to, and look at that, dirty. That cylinder starts to raise up from opening and closing. So when you go to close a door, it doesn't want to. You gotta force it shut. And that's what causes it to be so hard to open and close, is that cylinder. So to fix it, we've got two options. You can use a big pair of pliers, but I prefer to use a pair of needle nose. And the reason is if you look closely here, there's a notch cut out on the side. There's one on the other side. So if you take your pliers, or your needle nose pliers, and you stick them in those notches, you can just retighten that thing. You want the cylinder to be beneath the edge there, so it's not visible. And that'll make your door close so much easier. So that's one solution there. We're gonna go a little bit tighter on that. We just want to see like the upper part of the circle sticking out. There we go. So the goal is to adjust it where it's just below the halfway point. Now you can go lower or higher if you want. You can do it to fit, but you basically want to have enough tension that it closes easily and that it opens easily. You don't want it to be so low that it just comes open by itself when the air conditioning kicks on, especially if you're taking a shower, you're changing, your kids are hanging out in the bedroom. So you want a little bit of tension, just like that. Another common problem, and if you didn't adjust if you don't adjust your ball clasp, you just let it go and you just fight with it day after day, eventually the ball's gonna pop out. And you're gonna get a spring that just hangs out here, and you're gonna close the door on it. It's gonna get all chueco and crooked, and you're gonna have to go look for the ball. So once that ball comes out of the door, it falls on the floor and it rolls. You gotta look underneath places. You're stuck looking for it because you don't know where it went. Now, again, this happens when you don't adjust it, and over time the ball just comes out. It's got no choice because you've been beating up against the top of the door here. So if this happens, then we need to fix it. Now once again, you can use a pair of pliers like this one here, or a pair of needle nose. Now mine are sticking out far enough that I can just do it by hand. Just going to take this completely out. There it is, with the crooked spring on top. Fun times. That shouldn't be like that. Now I was lucky enough to actually find the ball. If you can't find the ball, you could actually go to your hardware store. You might have to buy the whole mechanism again just for the ball, or maybe they have the ball. I haven't actually gone to look for that because I've been lucky enough to find that. Either the cat's playing with it, I'll step on it, or somebody calls me the moment it falls out, which is rare, and then I get a chance to go look for it. So now we're going to put this all back together. Now, here's how it's going to work. We're going to take the spring out. And it's kind of easy because it's all bent and crooked. And there's a small side of the cylinder here, the one with these little notches, and that's the fat side of the cylinder. And the ball goes in the bottom, and it's not supposed to come out of the top. Now, mine popped out already, and that's just because it got extended and it got tired of being abused, and it just popped out. So what we're going to do, before we put that in there, I'm going to take a good set of pliers here, and I'm just going to pinch the end, just a tiny bit. I don't want to make it so crooked it doesn't go in anymore. We're just going to give it a little squeeze right here on the end. Just a tiny bit to distort it. Okay? Not too much, because then it won't go in anymore. Then we're going to take the ball, we're going to drop it back in, and it's not going to go as far. You see that? It's because I've distorted it. Then we're going to take our spring, we're going to stick it back in. I'm not going to even try to replace or straighten the string back out. And then we're going to stick it back into the top of the door. We're going to take the spring here, going to feed it back in. You want the notches here to be on top, like they were before. And you put them on top of that spring. Again, I'm not going to straighten the spring out just because there's no hope. It's like trying to straighten a slinky.
We had part of a slinky, but I straightened it.
And we're going to start to thread it back on again. As far as you can by hand. You can use your pliers if you want. You have to wash your hands afterwards. Take your needle nose pliers. Remember these notches I told you about? If you're using needle nose, so you can stick them in those notches and you can just finish tightening them on. And you want to go where the cylinder is just below the horizon in there. I like how I call it a horizon. A little bit more. Just a tiny bit more. So now you got to put back on. We're going to give it a shot to make sure that it closes smoothly. You want to have enough tension again, but you don't want it to be too tight. So we know that that's worked. Basically, you want to get into a routine of adjusting those clasps every so often. And if you're not good at setting a routine or setting a schedule to do that, like me, just keep an eye out for it. When you start noticing that the doors are getting tight and hard to close, just go up there and make an adjustment real quick. If not, you're going to be looking for that ball bearing on the floor, like I do all the time.